here's what happened. How do I feel? How do I feel? Numbers out of 50.
Good.
I'm stoked. I have no reason to be anything but stoked on average. The average, speaking of the average is lower than the median up there, mostly because there were a couple that didn't take the exam yet. So there are zeros in the grade book. Some of them I don't know why they didn't take it. I haven't heard from them, so I'm hoping they drop the course. Because otherwise it's going to suck. So, not for us, but for me, you know what I'm saying? So I'm excited about this, because this is good. This is very, very good. And I'm also excited about it because you guys are going to do corrections on this. If you haven't before, you know this. You can get up to 5 points back on this exam. Remember the rainy day coupons from my class before? So I'll make a better link to this. But if you go to the schedule page, some of you, I don't think anybody in here has used it yet. There are 3 rainy day coupons. There's 1 for projects, and there are 2 for exams. I don't think anybody's used any of them yet. Well, you wouldn't have used the exam ones yet because the exam ones didn't kick in until right now. And as soon as this loads, I'll show you where they are. There you go. So if you go, and I'll make, like I said, I'll make these a lot clearer. I'll put a link to them up here, hopefully this afternoon when I get back to my 3rd class. But right now, I'll click on the links down here, rainy day coupons. So the project one up top is in case you guys forget to do a project. It gives you 24 hours grace period to turn it in without a penalty. And that's worth 5 extra credit points if you don't use it. And right now, I don't think anybody's used it at all. So some of you may notice on the progress reports that I email out to you guys, there's a 5 in the spot at the bottom. There's a 5 for extra credit points. That just means you're sitting on 5 extra points right now. The rainy day coupon there in the middle, rainy day exam number 1. This is a way to go take a look at what I just handed back to you. And if that, what I just handed back to you, it's a way to take some of the pressure off of the in-class part of an exam. Hopefully there was no pressure for the out-of-class part. Hopefully you had plenty of time, plenty of opportunities to sit with people and chit-chat, email me back and forth if you needed to. A couple of you did. Not many of you did. I'm assuming most of you got your answers elsewhere. That's totally awesome. That's kind of the point, is to kind of let you go and use any resource at your disposal. Did you guys use the tutors for the out-of-class part of the exam? Awesome. Did they seem freaked out or did they seem okay?
No, they were fine.
They were okay. They were good. They were good. Okay, perfect, perfect. And that's good. How many of you went online? I mean, I made you go online for 1 or 2 things. How many of you went online for other stuff for the exam? How many worked? Oh, good. Good. 1, 2. How many worked totally by themselves on it? A couple of you. Oh, about a third of you. Okay, how many of you did the rest of you partnered up at least with at least one other person? That's good. I'm assuming. Good. So that's the point. Is I don't want any pressure on the out-of-class parts, and they're also more thinkers. You had to teach yourself how to use that damn website, which was 1996's finest HTML coding. Bright blue background, awesome, awesome. But you had to get in there and figure out how to use it, which it looks like you all did. The in-class part, though, it's still like a math test. You come in here, you sit down, and you have to deal with, the idea that, I've got to represent what I know on this 1-hour assessment. And like I said, some folks haven't taken it yet. And I've heard from a lot of those folks, and I want to get them to take it so that these numbers will change. Some of these zeros will go away and be replaced with national exam scores. But realize that although 34 out of 50 seems maybe not as optimal as maybe you'd hope it would be, right? Because if you double that, it's not a very nice number. Realize it shouldn't be doubled. Because you're going to take whatever you got on that exam and add it to what you get on this exam. And that becomes out of 100. Right? Does that make sense? Yeah. So then I'll get these rated, and I'll send progress reports out to you guys hopefully tomorrow, so you know how you did on this before class on Thursday. But back to the rainy day coupon. Back to the rainy day. Please read all the stuff that's down here. I'll make it a little bit bigger. And I think Chris mentioned this before. Make sure you pay close attention to the part that says your corrections have to be correct. Had to add that relatively recently. Turning in wrong stuff, demanding points. We are in America. So. Make sure you read it. You have to print that thing off, connect it, staple it to your exam with the corrections on a separate sheet of paper. Yada 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 yada. It's all in there. Rose, go.
Do you want us, since we can only get 5 extra points?
Yes.
Do you want us to correct 5 points worth? Or
I want you to correct whatever. Because here's the deal. Suppose you correct 5 points worth, but you don't proofread it very carefully, and you only get 3 of them right. You're getting 3 points back.
Right.
And you get up to 5 points back. So I would say correct everything. That way at least you get the 5. I mean, you can't get more than that. But it is 10% of the value of that particular exam, which is, I know it doesn't seem like much. It used to be 10, but that's because the entire exam was in class, and it was 10% of that value. Now it's 10% of the value of the in-class part. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
I can't remember when you had me last. It may have been 10 points then.
It was, but it doesn't,
Yeah, it's still the same percentage. But yeah, correct everything and get all the points back. And then we're going to add it to this, which I'm sure you guys slayed. And then you'll be pleasantly surprised at the end of the day what the result looks like. Cool? Does that make sense? Good. I have another idea for a quiz. I'm going to throw another quiz up on Wednesday. Looking at the exam, one of the ones I think that gave people the most grief was the number 7 was the one, oh, this is not the out-of-class, the in-class one. Number 7 was the one about the Gallup poll of presidential and congressional approval ratings or disapproval ratings. And I said, circle all the margins of error that would make you believe that there are more disapprovals now than before the start of the government shutdown. And the idea was, I really didn't mean for that to be confusing. I meant for that to be the easiest problem on the exam. And I'm not sure it came across that way. I think you guys were overthinking it a little bit. So try to understand why the only percentages there that would make you believe the poll are 1% and 2%. See if you can understand why. And this is what the quiz is going to be on. I'm going to make an extra quiz to kind of hit this idea again in case you want to revisit it, because I think very often in our lives we're not creating confidence intervals, we're interpreting them. And that's why on that particular one I want to make sure you understand what's going on. So take a look at that. Let me grab one real quick so I can look at it with you. So it said nearly 3/4 of Americans disapprove of the way Republicans in Congress are handling negotiations, 74%, up from 63%. So right now, it's currently at 74, up from 63 at the start of the shutdown. There's that superfluous 70% in there. That's really meaningless because I was telling you to compare before the shutdown to current. So there's a difference of, 11 percentage points there. Now we know that each of those statistics has a margin of error on it, but you don't know what it is yet. You don't know what it is yet. Also, Democrats went from 56 to 61. How far apart are those? Those are 5 apart. Those are 5 apart. So my question is, assuming the same margin of error is on both of those polls, which it was, what values of these margins of error down here would lead you to believe that 74 is actually bigger than 63 significantly, and that 61 is actually bigger than 56? And there are only 2 down here that do the trick. Why? Who wants to verbalize why for me? Why are only 2 of those valid? No, I'm doing warning, I apologize.
Yeah, work for both of them.
Say that again, Eric?
Yeah, work for both of them.
You gotta work for both. And the reason I mention that is you could totally ignore the Republicans one. The Republicans are wicked far apart, right? They're 11 points apart. So really, almost any of those margins of errors would work for the Republicans except for 6%. Since they're 11 percentage points apart, and you have to apply a margin of error above and below the percentages, that means the margin of error for the Republicans can go no more than 5.5% until the intervals overlap each other. Does that make sense? Until they overlap each other. I know I've kind of hit this point into the dirt as far as overlapping confidence intervals. But 1%, 4%, 3%, 2%, none of those would overlap on the Republicans' confidence intervals, right? On the Republicans. But they would on the Democrats, wouldn't they? A 4% margin of error is too big, because a 4% margin of error applied to the Democratic one could make the 61% drop below the 56%, depending on where it is. I encourage you to draw them. I made you draw them at some point, I thought. Maybe it was on this exam that I made you draw them.
Yeah.
But it was on that one, yeah. But I encourage you, I didn't leave you space on this one, I guess. Draw them out and realize when there's only 2 margins of error there that would make you believe statistically significantly that the Democrats are doing worse now than before, and so are the Republicans are doing worse now than before. And did you catch what the margin of error actually was in the poll? In Part B? I left this in Part B. They claimed it was 3.5%. Which means, what? Which means you can only believe it for the Republicans. You don't believe it for the Democrats because it's too big. This happens all the time, and hence my quiz. Hence the quiz I'm going to put on as an addendum. I'll list it for Thursday. Hopefully I can get it done between now and Thursday. But I'll also push it back to next Tuesday if you need an extra day to turn it in. I'm going to have you guys go out on the internet and find me 2 studies, one of which makes a claim like this, where the margin of error makes it insignificant, and one where it makes it significant. In other words, one where a statistic is interpreted correctly, and one where a statistic is interpreted incorrectly. This poll has one of each, doesn't it? You believe it for the Republicans, but you don't believe it for the Democrats because of the 3.5% margin of error. So after reading this question, this was the only question, I'd say, I kept track of the stats on it. There was a 27% chance that assuming you got a similar question to that right on the rest of the exam, you got that question right as well. Which means there's a 73% chance that you got it wrong, assuming you got the similar one right. There's a 15% chance that you got it right, assuming that you got a similar one wrong on the exam, and the converse 85% chance. So the reason I'm telling you this, I went and looked at how everybody did on that question. Because I said about 40% of you got it wrong overall. I'm like, that seems kind of high. It's not like the majority, but it's enough to make me kind of be like, what happened? So then I went back and looked at the other questions that were similar to it. Involved the LSAT question on the front page that said, can we believe that the LSAT scores are being improved by the course? And also the Tea Partier question, can we believe that Tea Partiers are wealthier? So I tried to compare and contrast, because that question down here is the same as both of those. But it doesn't require you to do any work. All the work's done for you already. And that's why I thought it was a gift. That's why I thought I was just giving you this here, just go take run with it. I guess you didn't view it as that way. That's okay. That's all right. You can fix it now and get the points back, of course. But that's why I think I want to make another quiz. It won't be like a computational quiz like we've been doing in class. It'll be go out in the news and find me a poll where the margin of error is interpreted incorrectly, and go out and find me one where it's interpreted correctly. And I think I'll post it for this Thursday, but we'll give you till next week to turn it in, because you won't have enough time maybe to get that done plus everything else. Fair? Good? Decent? Okay, good. A couple of you guys came in. Let me get you your exams. Can one of you guys pause that camera? That'd be great. So Jesse's here, right?